All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Joel Pitney. I'm the founder of Launch My Book, and this is the first episode of our author interview series. Over the course of the series, we're going to be talking to different authors that we've worked with in the past for our company and some that we haven't, asking them about their books, their writing process, and then some different tips in the publishing and promotion process. So our guest today is Lisa Slabach, who we worked with several years ago to build her author website. She is a fintech relationships executive by day, but on nights and weekends, she's the writer of women's fiction. She's published 2 novels. One of them is called Degrees of Love, and the other one is 10,000 I Love Yous. And she's currently developing a third. And so I'm excited to have Lisa here today. Hi, Lisa.
Thank you. Hi. Nice to be here.
And everybody should definitely go and check out her books. You can find out about everything about her at lisaslabach.com, and we'll put a URL in the comments so you can get that. She's got great stuff, so check it out. We're going to talk a little bit today, Lisa. We're going to talk a little bit about your writing, but then I also want to talk a little bit about some of the things you've done to promote your books, because you've done some cool stuff. Lisa is a self-published author, is that right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
But she's been much more successful than the average self-published author, and so we want to talk about some of the ways that she's done that. So first of all, Lisa, could you tell me a little bit about the books you've written?
Yeah, so the books I write are women's fiction, as you said, and I like looking at women in their mid-30s, pushing 40-ish, because I think that's when there's a big evaluation in women's lives today with contemporary women, that they reevaluate where they are, where they've been, where you want to go. So I kind of hone in on that age a little bit, and not so much because it's a midlife crisis per se, but that there's a maturity that comes at that age as well. So you've really left being a young woman behind, and you are a fully grown, mature, confident woman at that age, and really looking at, what do you want to do with your life? Where are you? So I find that interesting. I also find it really interesting exploring the dynamics of husband and wife relationships and how that changes over the years and how that can change based on how you grow and change as a person. So, I think that's really interesting to me. I like to think that I put humor in my books, that's not all just angsty, blah, blah, blahs. So that's also a part of it.
Very cool.
Yeah. So the first book is really focused on a woman who, she starts off life and she thinks she wants to be an actress. So she's gone to school. She has her MFA in acting. Her friends, when they graduate, they go off to New York to be actors. And instead of doing that path, she marries a guy that she met in grad school who is a scientist. And he's a computational biologist, which puts him in Silicon Valley. So instead of going to New York, she goes to Silicon Valley with her husband. And of course, there's little to none theater opportunity there. So she ends up going into sales and giving up her passion of theater to be a wife and mother, and then she has kids. And in this process, she's kind of lost part of herself and a very passionate side of herself as well. Her husband's very staid. She's more passionate natured. And so they're a little bit of fire and water combo, but because of her background and everything, she was attracted to that at one point because that was stability in her life. He was stable. He looked to be stable. He'd be a good father, and he was a nice guy. So she made a decision to love him. But now you fast forward later, and she's in this life, in this world she never anticipated. She's doing corporate sales, and she meets somebody new. And that leads her down a path that she thought she would never go down, and to a new life. And so the second novel, I started thinking about it when I was writing the first novel. Mm-hmm. And so this is a long time that these ideas germinate until they come out to something, right? So I was writing this novel, and there were a lot of like emotionally raw scenes that I was writing, with confrontation scenes between my protagonist and her husband, and some really, tough stuff to write. And I was like, okay, I need a break. So I started playing around with this idea that I was going to do this rom-com, right? So the rom-com was going to be that I have a woman who, she got married young, she's divorced young, she has a daughter, and they look like sisters, and she moves to a big city, and she's going to pass herself off as a 20-something-year-old, and then shenanigans ensue with mistaken identities with her daughter, and this kind of thing, which I thought was a fun idea. But then the television show Younger came out, and I found out somebody else already did that.
Whoops.
Whoops. But instead, I started thinking about the whole idea, though, about getting married very young, and what it would be like to meet your spouse when you're, 16 years old. And that's been it, for your entire life. And having a child when you're young, and what that would do to you and your spouse. So I ended up with this other book that I did not quite plan, where the scenario is these two young people meet when they're 16. They fall wildly crazy about each other in high school. She gets pregnant, and instead of having an abortion or giving the baby up for adoption, they get married instead. And as a result of that, she's disowned by her family for a while, but they've made a success of it. They've been okay, and they've done well. But then the day before her husband graduates, or before their daughter graduates from high school, or the day after, I should say, her husband walks out and leaves her. So a lot of the book is her exploring internally what went wrong, what was her culpability in his departure, because he's a good guy. Why did he just leave? So there's another side to that story that she has to reconcile with. And then a big part of the story is the theme of forgiveness, right? How much you willing to forgive. And kind of the question, which I threw out later in some of my promo, which we'll talk about later, is forgiveness really the ultimate act of love, right? So after something like that happens, how do you get back to forgiveness? And forgiveness being freeing for you personally doesn't mean that you forget, but it frees you to move on. So that's kind of where I ended up.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm curious, you said you started off kind of going for a rom-com. How much did that flavor sort of stick to the second book?
Oh, there are definitely some things in there that's still there, so
yeah.
She is writing a dating blog, and she does have a couple of messy dates, and she's got a good sense of humor. So there's still some of that in there, but it's definitely not the prominent piece of it, and it's not the thrust of the story, right?
Oh, that's great. Yeah, no, there's a lot of books and movies and TV now that are starting to do a lot of that. They kind of fall more into that drama category, but they have elements of comedy, I guess, kind of dramedy, kind
of dramedy. Yeah.
Oh, that's
yeah.
Excellent. We'll have to check that out.
Yeah. So there's, anyway.
First one is Degrees of Love. Second one is 10,000 I Love Yous.
I Love Yous, right.
And then do you want to give a sneak peek of the one you're working on now?
Well, if I do, it's going to be different by the time it comes out, because it always changes. But I'm looking at doing a story about a woman who's a work wife. Okay. So that's what I'm looking at, is that work wife. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Cool. Very compelling. So fans of Lisa Slabach and people who've just discovered her, you should be waiting for that book.
Yeah.
Do you have a title yet, or is it just you're still working on everything?
I'm still working on everything, so I don't have a title right now. I'm just calling it That Work Wife Book.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, so I guess question from you, and this is I'm also a writer too, and and I know what it's like to have a day job and also try to write.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how do you navigate all that?
It's sometimes it's easier than others, but it is not easy.
Hmm.
One of the advantages I have with my job is that I do travel.
Hmm.
So I do spend time on airplanes, in cars, that sort of thing. And when I'm traveling, I can't have my work laptop out all the time.
Yeah.
So it does allow me a little free thinking time so
Hmm.
that I could be plotting in my head or thinking about dialogue or, playing the scene in my head, quite honestly, like watching the movie in my head. And then when I actually can get to my personal laptop and start typing, I do have ideas and things that I'm like stored up.
They're kind of cooking in the background a little bit.
Kind of cooking in the background a little bit.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah. So it kind of does help. And I used to do a lot more driving. And so sometimes I'd have 3 and 4 hour drives. And part of the drive, I would probably be talking to my staff and, maybe catching a conference call. But if I have that long of a drive, I always have a good hour, 2 hours where I'm just driving.
Right.
And so it gives me a little more thinking time. Then, of course, airplane travel, sometimes what I do is I just put in earphones, like I'm listening to an Audible.
Yeah.
I don't have anything on. Just like nobody talk to me, I'm thinking.
Yeah. Do you ever, sometimes when I'm driving, I do the same thing, but when I come up with a thought, I'll often do the phone, I'll dictate it into my phone. I'll just send myself an email and just say the thing. Do you ever do anything like that, or do you just kind of lock it in there?
I just kind of lock it in there.
That's impressive.
Yeah. But sometimes I will just like jot down an idea on a notebook while I'm just like a little scribble just to jog my memory. But yeah, I do that. And then I do get up early in the morning, and that kind of saves me. So I'll get up at 5, 6 in the morning, and that does help.
Yeah.
Because the house is quiet. Yeah, house is quiet. My phone's not ringing. Because at night, by the time I do my work day, and I work 10, 12 hours a day, usually with my job. And so by the time I do that, and I have dinner with my husband, and we have wine like almost every night, which I really enjoy, but it doesn't put me in a writing space.
Yeah, right. That's funny.
At that point, but getting up early in the morning works. Saturday morning, Sunday mornings, give myself time.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, no, sometimes I will go. There's a cigar bar in town, and it's one of the few bars that for some reason they're grandfathered in. They're allowed to have cigars in their bar for some reason. I'm not a cigar smoker, but I like the smell of it, and it's kind of dark, and so I like to go and write there. And I always feel like the first beer helps unleash some creativity, but then the second beer distorts everything.
I think you're right. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
I will be known, though, on a Saturday afternoon to have a glass of wine when I'm writing sometimes, because I do agree.
It helps, right? Yeah.
Loosens you up. Yeah.
Especially if you're stuck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Exactly.
Excellent. So, if it's okay with you, I'd like to shift gears a little bit, and I want to talk a little bit about some of the tactics you've used to sell your books.
Sure.
You're not making a living selling books, but
no,
or writing it, as sort of a second thing in your life, and you have had more success than a lot of self-published authors do. And there's a couple things. I'd love just to hear your perspective generally, but there's a couple things in particular I know about what you do that I want to make sure we cover. And the first one is getting Amazon customer reviews. I know you've done some interesting novel ways of getting readers to leave customer reviews for you. And as everyone knows, Amazon customer reviews are really important nowadays. Probably even more important than expert reviews, to be honest, especially if you can get a lot of them. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I think you're right. And I did kind of learn my lesson with that a little bit with Degrees of Love, because my strategy, which is not a bad strategy, and I'm not saying don't do this, I think you can, but my first strategy was I was going to go out and get all the paid reviews I could afford. right? So, you know, I went to Kirkus and I went to San Francisco Book Review and, you know, Reader's Favorite, and, you know, a number of these different review services where you could go to. And so I started with that and I posted those reviews on Amazon, but then, you know, I kind of realized that I wasn't getting reader reviews. So I had to kind of shift gears for reader reviews and figure out, you know, how to do that, because one of the things I do know is that I don't want to just have my friends and family leaving a review. If they're not women's fiction readers, it doesn't really help me too much, other than maybe get my score up a little bit. Right.
Just numbers, right?
Yeah, it's just numbers. But if I want to attract the right reader, then you have to do some other things. And I wish I could tell you that I found one magic button that really worked, that took off, but I haven't. Okay. I think just like anything, you have to really work at it, and you have to try a number of different tactics. And some tactics I use for Degrees of Love didn't work so well with launching this new book. So I'm having to do some different things.
Oh, interesting.
Because things change, you know, over time. It's a very dynamic world out there, and internet writers, I mean, the proliferation of sites that are promoting books right now has just exploded from even 4 years ago when I launched Degrees of Love. So, you know, I definitely switched. But one thing I think I definitely found out is that I don't think the editorial reviews were as important for selling that book as the reader reviews. Interesting.
That's good to hear, because, you know, there's a big business in getting those, you know, paid editorial reviews, and a lot of people do it. And
there is.
Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just saying there is, and I think you should still do it, but I don't think you should hinge on it. And I don't know that you necessarily have to go out and get the big name. Right. Because I did have a Kirkus that was a starred review. I did get reviewed by Publishers Weekly, and that was great. And I was able to use that in some of my promo material, but I don't know that those reviews themselves drove people to buy my book.
Right. They're not a source of traffic, but they're more of a branding.
They're branding, yeah. But I think you could leverage that same branding with other reviewers, other testimonials, right? Because it's not that the average reader knows Kirkus Review, right? I mean, the average reader reads a blurb, and it could be, you know, the mommy blog, it could be Love Reading Today, and it doesn't matter. It is a testimonial of somebody that reads in your genre, and you're going to trust that. So I don't think you necessarily have to spend the money. I don't think it's a waste of money in some cases, because, you know, for me with Degrees, when I got that starred review, I did get an agent out of it. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to sell my book, which was fine. I think she worked hard on it, and it didn't work out. And so I went self-publishing instead. So I don't want to completely poo-poo it or tell somebody it's completely worthless. It's not, but then you really have to work at leveraging it. So you take that and you spend money to promote that review. Right. So do I want to spend the money promoting that particular review, or do I want to put effort into finding readers? Right. And so, you know, that's where you kind of come in a little bit. So some of the things that I've done is I have put out on social media, no doubt about it. You know, if you like my book, do me a solid and drop me a rating. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. So I did develop a mailing list. And so the mailing list, you know, I did send out, and I have gotten some reviews from that initially. I have done things with free books, and then, hey, you know what? Do a pre-order. I'll send you advance copy. Please review, you know, the book.
How does that work?
Well, that hasn't worked out so great, but I think it's a work in progress. I think I have some different ways to tweak it. Okay. So basically the way that works is, if you pre-order my book and you don't want to wait to read it until it's released, then shoot me a screenshot or something that you pre-ordered it on Amazon, and I will advance you an e-copy or PDF, so you can read it now. You don't have to wait.
Mm-hmm. And then when the book comes out, that's when you can't leave the review until the book goes live.
That's right.
So you can follow up with everyone and say, hey, please go review my book.
Hey, please go review my book. And what I've found is that a handful of people did it, right?
Well, a lot of small handfuls add up, right?
That's exactly right. So that's why I'm saying there's no one magic silver bullet that does it. You have to do a number of things. So I did get some reviews that way initially. And one thing, though, that I do think drives reviews, that I do encourage everybody to do, I think it's worth the money, is to get connected with a good blog tour.
Okay.
Because the bloggers will leave reviews on Goodreads, they'll leave it on BookBub, they'll leave reviews on Amazon, and they have followers, and so that sort of starts a trend, right? So you start getting some reviews that way. There's
a lot of kind of book bloggers in the women's fiction space, right?
There's a lot.
It doesn't work for every genre, right? But for that genre, there's a lot of bloggers, right?
Yeah. And so a lot of times with these blog tours, part of it is that they guarantee that they will review the book.
Oh, that's good. So the bloggers themselves are reviewing the book and promoting it to their audiences, and they're reviewing it on Goodreads and Amazon?
Goodreads, Amazon, and other sites as well. So whatever sites they're involved with, library thing, that sort of thing.
When you do the blog tours, how do you approach them? Do you cold call them? Do you kind of make a list and then put together a pitch, or how do you go about?
Well, the first one, I was going to try to do it myself by reaching out to bloggers, and I got like 3 bloggers who said, sure, I'll review your book, but trying to get them coordinated and time at the same time and all that, it just didn't really work out. And I sent out a lot of emails to get 3 people, which took a lot of time to look them up, look at their requirements,
right?
And of course you have a template that you copy paste, but it's still a lot of work. So at the end of the day, I ended up going with iRead's book tour, and they found me. iRead.
iRead book tour. Okay, cool.
And they got me a 25 review blog tour with 30 stops that included reviews, author interviews. I was allowed to do some guest posting on those sites.
That's great.
And so it really propelled the book.
Okay.
I think that's probably the thing that propelled Degrees more than anything, was launching that.
And is theirs model set up where, do they guarantee a certain number for you, or do they just say, hey, we'll do our best?
Nope, they guarantee you a certain number.
Cool. And I imagine they must have relationships with all those blogs.
They do.
Built up because they're genre specific. Is that?
They do, yeah. So there's certain genres that they do, and then they have giveaways that are tied to it, and so they do different things for those bloggers to keep them interested.
Good.
In working with it, because of course those bloggers get some PR out of it, because iRead's tour advertises that here are their stops, and they have their own people that follow their site,
right? And
then of course the authors are promoting it. So when I'm doing my blog tour, if I have a stop with this blogger this week, then I'm making sure that I put that on Facebook, I put it on Twitter, I'm advertising on my website that this is my blog tour, here I'm stopping today. I'll reprint some things from that blogger onto my site, things like that will kind of push it along and help the bloggers too.
That's great.
So
that's so helpful to me, Lisa, because I don't know how much you know this about our company, but we do author websites and we do publishing for all genres.
Yeah.
But, when it comes to marketing, I don't really know much about the world of fiction, and I've heard a lot of blog tours historically.
Yeah.
I think I might even tried that once for somebody. anyway, it's very nice to know about some successful models and also some successful companies for fiction authors.
Yeah, absolutely. So this time I went back to I Read Tours, and I think last time, I mean, they were working on it for weeks and, like over a month trying to fill up that blog tour. And this time, they were done in, about 2 weeks less, filled it up right away.
Wow.
And I think because there are people that probably picked me up before and saw my name and went, oh yeah, I'll do her,
Right.
Yeah, so it was really nice. So
and that means you were good the first time, right? I mean, that's a big, that probably means they liked you and you were successful, and that's one reason they wanted to, right?
Yeah, so I would say if you're going to do a blog tour, don't be a flake. I mean, you've got to answer their questions. You've got to make sure they get their books on time. You have to promote them at the same time they're promoting you. I think that's part of being a good partner. And I would say, I had years and years in sales and doing partner management with bank partners, quite honestly. And you cannot just be a taker. You have got to give back if you want people to promote you too.
So how does that manifest in your work with books? How do you give back?
Well, for one thing, if a blogger posts me, I will put it on Facebook. I'll put it on Twitter. I will follow them, and if I see something that I like that they posted, I'll give it a like, I'll give it a share. But, you have to do things like that.
That's great. I mean, it's funny. It's very simple, but it's also something that many people overlook, right?
Yeah. And it's something that, I want to be better at. I think I do a pretty good job of doing that when I'm really actively promoting the book. But then when I go into my sleepy, I'm in my office with the door shut writer mode, I'm terrible.
Right. Yeah.
So,
they're two different selves, right?
Two different selves. So it's like I get exhausted. And then I have to go and recuperate and write. So I've got to get better at balancing and keeping that kind of thing going, even when I'm not actively promoting the book.
Very cool.
So that's one thing I would say. The other thing is, don't overlook some of these sites that are paid, that you pay them to get you reviewers on site. You are not, and this is where I think a lot of writers get hung up. They think they're paying for the review. You're not paying for the review. You are not guaranteed good reviews. You are not guaranteed certain star ratings or anything. The only thing you are guaranteed with some of these sites is that they will find you a reviewer. So the advantage, though, with the reviewers that they find is that these are companies that keep databases of reviewers in your genre. So you are really paying them to find you the reviewer. That's what you're paying for.
Not for the review itself.
Not for the review itself.
Right.
And these reviewers that you can get through these sites, some of them are very eloquent with the reviews. They read your genre and they promote your review other places, because they may also have a blog and they are on social media and they're doing, so it's not just necessarily Amazon's. You might be thinking you're paying for an Amazon review, but then they're popping up on Goodreads or Library Thing or, BookBub or wherever.
Great. Love it.
So I would definitely.
This is a gold mine of great advice, Lisa.
Well, there are other, but I will tell you, you get what you pay for. And so if you go to some lesser expensive sites like that, then you need to vet it, and you probably need to vet your reviewers.
So I guess one question I have, do you have any recommendations for some of the paid review sites that you've used or you think are good for people?
Well, I would say that if you're doing something on a budget, Book Sirens is not bad.
Book Siren?
Book Sirens. So the way they work, and don't quote me on this, because people can change their pricing anytime. So say, well, Lisa Slabach said on a blog, this is how much it costs. Well, it could be completely different, right? So the way they work is they charge $10 for you to post your book on their site. And then they charge you $2 for every download of your book they get. And on average, if you'll get 75% of the people who download your book will leave a review.
That's great. So that's
So
what,
it's a pretty good hit.
the dollar
but
for the review.
yeah, but this is what I would caution though. I would recommend that if you do that, they do have an option that you can vet the reviewer before you release the book. So I wouldn't set it so just anybody could download it. I would set it so that you can make sure that whoever is saying that, sure, I'll read your book and do this, that they are in your genre, that they fit with, what you do. Because, for getting a free book and people are out there, yeah, I'm going to review books. Well, they might be good at it, they may not. And you want to make sure you have some decent quality and that you have good fit. Otherwise, it's not going to really work for you. So Book Sirens, I don't know that they do as great of a job matching you. That's why you've got to put in some legwork yourself.
Okay.
Shoot, now I'm blanking the name of the company now. K Book Promotions.
Okay.
Say the name. They do a really good job. They charge more, but they do a really good job of matching you up with reviewers in your genre, and their reviews are pretty professional. So they're good. I think Self-Publishing Review has a lot of great resources for authors to get going. So I would say that's a great site. I actually used them this time to do a book review, and they did a really nice job promoting the book.
Nice.
Besides the review. So they're a company that will like email it, put it on Twitter, that sort of thing. So I would definitely do that. But they have a whole section of author resources. So you could go to that, even if you just want, a good beta read, where somebody's going to give you really good feedback. It's not too expensive to use their beta read services. They have Amazon promotions, Goodread promotions. So they have a lot of really good stuff too. So there's those kind of things. But sort of a combination, I would say, between having your mailing list, emailing to your readers, which I was kind of surprised by. So I'm kind of ashamed of myself on this, and I'm actually admitting this. But I got a decent sized mailing list for my first book that you guys helped me with getting the landing page that goes to sign up for the subscription, right? So we got that going. I got a pretty good list going. And so I never sent anything to that list. And then I was like, oh, I have a new book coming out. I should send to that list.
Yeah.
So I finally sent to the list.
Yeah.
I got the nicest response.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I got a really nice response.
That's great.
And what was really nice is, I know that I sold some books from that right away, and I got some early reviews from that, which was really nice.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think I checked it before the interview. On Degrees of Love, you got over 100 Amazon customer reviews, right?
Yeah.
Which is phenomenal. I mean, that's a lot of traditionally published books don't get that many not even close to that many customer reviews.
Yeah. Well, and with that, I think too, is once you get a certain number of reviews, people just start popping some reviews. So at a certain point, you're not pushing that review as much, that other people just kind of naturally do it. But you have to keep promoting your book. I will say that.
Yeah, you can't stop.
You can't stop. Yeah. It's constant.
Excellent.
And I played with that too. I thought, well, I'm going to promote the book for 1 year and see what happens. Well, I promoted for 1 year and the sales dropped like a lead balloon.
Yeah.
So
and you were done. Yeah.
I was done. Right. Like, all right, got to keep promoting.
Right. Yeah. No, it's a marathon. That's for sure.
It's marathon. Yeah. Yeah. But I have sold a good amount of books. So Goodreads, I was pretty proud with Goodreads. I have 192 ratings on Goodreads, which, when you look at I don't know, Emily Griffin or something like that, right? And they have thousands. It's tiny, but I think for an indie author, it's pretty good. And I've started off better this round than the last round. with reviews. So I'm ramping up faster.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Yeah. The one thing that is a little frustrating with Amazon is that you have to be patient for those reviews to hit, because Amazon, they do not like if you leave a review now, that review's up an hour later.
Mm-hmm.
They vet it and they can suppress reviews.
Yeah.
So if they think it looks like you paid somebody to do the review, they'll suppress it. So
good. We want that, right? We want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's harder to game the system, but that's better for everybody.
It is better for everybody. So you just have to be patient,
Right.
They'll show up, they'll make it. If they're legitimate, eventually they'll show up.
Yeah.
So when I figured that out with degrees, because I thought, wow, I thought so-and-so left me a review, or gosh,
Mm-hmm.
And then 3 months later, the review's there. So it takes them a while sometimes to vet through, but they'll show up.
Great. Good. So I know we're kind of getting, we've been going for a while here. I wanted to make sure I had a chance to ask you about one more thing. I think you've given us a lot of really cool tips for self-published fiction authors, getting customer reviews, but also just sales. So I guess the last thing is you mentioned to me that you use an Amazon bookseller account, which is different than a lot of people who self-publish, including a lot of the clients that we self-publish for. We just set them up with Amazon KDP print-on-demand accounts as opposed to an Amazon seller account. And I'm curious why you do that and how that's helped you be successful.
Well, the seller account, I had the seller account because I do sell some books on Amazon, just because I, collect books and like selling books, and I make almost nothing on it. I will tell you, I almost feel like it's a nonprofit service to get rare and out of print books out there to people. But anyway, it's worked out well with my own books, because if you're self-published, Amazon may stock your book or they may not, or they might sell out and it won't be available. So for instance, with the book I'm selling right now, they sold out of whatever they ordered, they sold out of.
Do you not have it set up for print on demand?
It is. But the way Amazon works is that they'll pre-buy, like if you get pre-orders, right? So they'll order the pre-orders.
Yep.
And they'll only keep a certain amount of books on pre-order. And if they get to a certain point, they're going to ship your books, whether it's launched or not, for the paperbacks. They won't drop your ebook copies, but they will drop your paperbacks. And so what happened was, whatever run they had, they sold out of before my launch. So when we got to the launch date, Amazon was out.
Who do you use for your print on demand publishing?
I use BookBaby. So there's more books coming, but it's all based on what Amazon orders, right?
So this is an interesting thing. And sorry to interrupt, but I want to just, this is a passion of mine, because I've been doing self-publishing now for 7 or 8 years. And in the beginning, I would use a third party like BookBaby, but I used Ingram Spark. And you could go with Ingram Spark, and then your book would be available for print on demand publishing on a variety of retailers, including Amazon. And then all of a sudden, I would mysteriously, some of the books we published would mysteriously go out of stock, which made no sense, because it's print on demand publishing. How could it possibly go out of stock? And then what I found out is that Amazon does that to the third party print on demand.
They do.
Now as a result, I basically I just put my books directly through Amazon's print on demand service.
Well, I did find out, though, with Degrees of Love, that I did sell books in the UK, like at Blackwell's, and I did sell some books on Powell's, and the Powell's had the book and they sold it, and that went through that way. So I was able to sell the book through other channels, so I didn't want to limit, just to Amazon. But if you have your own seller account, you've solved the problem.
Right, because then you're sending in stock to fulfill those orders in advance.
I ship it myself.
Right, but it is more work, right? You have to have your own inventory that you ship when they ask you for orders. Yeah,
exactly. But I was already set up to sell books, so I already have shipping software. I have boxes. Okay. And then that way, I have a method to do signed copies as well, so that people ask me, well, how can I get a signed copy? Well, I could send you a PayPal invoice, or you could send me a check or whatever. But this is what happens. All right. I'm not showing his actual name there, but this is a check that a friend sent me because he wanted a signed copy. Right. Okay. And it's been sitting on my desk for a month.
Right. Yeah.
Because a month ago, Amazon wouldn't let me sell my own book online until my launch date.
Right.
So it's a way for, people that want a signed copy, they could go there, they could order it. I always make sure that it's available for sale on Amazon. Mm-hmm. So I think that helps. But the other thing too, as a bookseller, I'm able to go on Ingram Spark and I can see how many books have been ordered of my book.
That's cool.
Ingram that are waiting for shipment. So I kind of, so I was able to nudge BookBaby a little bit like, hey, it's supposed to be put on demand and this order has been sitting here. I can see it. Right. You've had so many books sitting here.
Right.
So it's cool. I don't know, maybe it's a little obsessive, but
no, I mean, not everybody's, I don't think that setup probably works for everybody, but if you have the wherewithal and you're, there is an advantage that you can get an advantage by doing that. It's just, I think for people, it's a bit of a trade-off. Some people just, they're not going to have the software and they're not going to have the time or the interest in fulfilling and all that. But if you do, there's benefits, right?
There is, and you can always just walk down the post office and post a book. So if you need to ship it, but it does work well for me. Like I sent out books for advanced reader copies. Mm-hmm. For the blog tour, I'm doing a giveaway on Library Thing. So with those, I'm giving away paperbacks. Mm-hmm. And it does help to have the shipping software, and I have boxes that fit the books. Mm-hmm. And it takes me minutes to package a book and ship it. Mm-hmm. So there's some good things for it. And then, if you're not shipping your own books, you can have it all set up so you don't have to stand in line at Christmas when you're sending gifts to family.
That's true. Yeah, that's right.
So not bad. Hey, I have one last tip for everybody on.
Yeah, go for it. Give us your final tip. Let's do it.
The final tip is when you go onto Amazon, scroll down to the section where it says to leave a review. Do you want a review? Right? And there's a little button you push. Do a little screenshot of that and then send the URL link so that people make it easy.
Right. So you show everybody exactly. They get a visual cue.
They get a visual cue. Like review here. And by the way, if you've already read the book, just click that link. It'll take you right there.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
So,
well, Lisa, this has been wonderful. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and share with me all your thoughts about writing and selling books and publishing books. I think people are going to find this really helpful.
It's my pleasure.
One of my missions is to kind of help educate people about how to do all this. And the more they can do it themselves, the better, I think.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's great to hear it from someone like you who's totally self-taught on all this. So,
yeah, and I'm still learning. So there's always something new. And if somebody else has a great idea, I'm willing to give it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
Try it out, see if it works.
Great. So if people want to learn more about Lisa, they can go to her website, www.lisaslabach.com, and that's SLABACH, right? And we'll put a URL on the screen and then in the web notes. And also I'll put links to all the things that we've mentioned in the comments or in the notes for the video, because I know there's a bunch of companies you've talked about, and we'll put links to your books and all that kind of stuff, so people can find out how to take action on all the things you talked about.
Great. That sounds fabulous. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was good to talk to you, and have a great day.
Thank you. You as well. Thanks, Joel.
Thanks for watching. If you want more tips and insights for publishing and promoting your book, subscribe to my YouTube channel here.